Hello everyone and welcome to another exciting video of Cubing World. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make your Rubik's clock good. As I mentioned in my How to Get Fast video, Rubik's clock is a very hardware dependent event. And many times, even if you buy like the good Rubik's clock on eBay, you will get one like this that has just pins that are dreadful to push in, takes a significant amount of force, and the turning is less than stellar. So today I'm going to show you how to make a Rubik's clock good, starting from opening the clock and moving on to some basic lubing and trying to some extra tips to try to make it better. Okay, so the first major obstacle to making a good clock is opening it. So for opening a clock, I recommend getting a pair of these fingernail scissors. So these guys, what makes them great is they have very small scissor heads, and as a result, that gives you more leverage on the handles. They're also curved a bit, which helps you get underneath the clock easier and a better grip on opening it. So to open the clock, you'll notice in here that there's the outer plastic shell, and then on the inside there's a black shell, which is what holds all the internal parts. The outer shell is just simply to hold the paper in and for a good appearance, essentially. So we need to get this plastic outer shell out. And what you'll notice in here is that you have a little bit of clear plastic just above this wheel along the outside here on each side. So what you want to do is get this each half of the scissor in there. So right now it is above the black wheel and underneath the clear plastic, also between the black plastic here and the clear plastic there. Then simply when you do that, you just simply have to start ripping, and boom, it's already starting to open. Just going to do that same thing again where it hasn't opened yet. It looks like that's on this side. One of the sides is always going to have the strongest amount of glue, and I'm fearing this might be this side as the other half opened way too easy. So slip that in there. And pull. Oh, that was super easy. Okay. And then you just simply pull off the clear shell. Take off the paper. Ooh. Interesting. This bugger doesn't want to come out so much. Alright, there we go. Starting to budge. Most clocks I have used have not had this experience. Alrighty, so as you saw, everything came off. So we have our clear outer casing, one for each half. 2 paper inserts, and then our good old clock. So first we're going to try to unscrew it. So to do this, you'll need your favorite precision screwdriver, something that's relatively small that can get inside the 2 screws we need to get. So there's one on each side. Typically on the upper left part, so one here, flip it over now we're on the opposite part, so when you're upside down, it's upper right. Did I say upper? It's upper right, that's where the screws are. So let's go ahead and start taking this apart. Okay. Oof, okay. And note, as you take this apart, it's best to try to have one side in the back because the stuff is a bit springy. Oh, you will also need to cut or peel off this Rubik's trademark sticker, as this will hold the clock together. I'm going to peel mine off. Attempt to peel mine off. At the very least, you can try to separate the 2 halves. Alright. So now this should be coming off. What might hold it down a bit, for me, might be the screw. I might not have unscrewed the other side well enough. Trying to keep this together as best I can. Yeah, this isn't actually the screw half, it's just a plastic piece. There we go. It's a really snug fit. Okay, so now we finally made it to the internals of the clock. So, the corner clocks are always the same on both sides, and they're just one big piece. Whereas the edge clocks are just on one half. They have a spring between each of them, and that separates them. You will also notice, put this back on, you will also notice the pins here. Each side has a plastic part, and that prevents the metal pins from scratching the plastic. And the metal pins which essentially hold the clock up. If you get a knockoff clock, you will not have these pins. My clock here has very stiff pins, so I'm definitely going to want to try to lubricate the metal pins a bit. See, and we'll also just try to lube the clock a bit overall. I've heard that CRC is the best in general for lubing clocks. I've had very decent success getting some Traxxas to work. So here is some 50K Traxxas oil. This is what I use in my main clock, and it seems to work very well. You'll just want to make sure you use an extremely light coating of this. First off, let's do the pins. So I'm going to very carefully remove and keep that plastic guard to the side. And now essentially what I want to do is just get the slightest amount of lube. Okay. And try to just put that little bit on the pin. Once you push it through, or once you get a lube on that side, push the pins through to the other side, and then try to lube the other side as well. And then go ahead and just try pushing the pins up and down a little bit. And hopefully you will have a easier to move clock after this. Alright, these pins are moving a lot better now. And of course, some repeated use will make these pins better. But getting the lube in there first is very important. Alright, so once you've done that pin, you'll want to push both of the metal parts up. Place the ring back on there, and simply place it back where it belongs into the hole. Trying not to mess up the other gears. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and repeat that for all 4 pins. Okay, so I've lubed all 4 of the pins. The next thing to do is to work on the shells. So I'm going to work on just the shell that I have removed first. So I'm not going to worry about sanding this one. I'm just going to go ahead and lube it. I know some people will sand the insides of their clocks. If you'd like to, you can do some minor sanding there. What I'm going to do, just because a clock needs an extremely light coating of lube, I'm going to use a paper towel to apply it. So just put like a little bit of lube right here on the paper towel. And then just do your best to try to spread that around the inner part of this here, because all of the gears essentially run somewhere up against this black part. And as you can see here, it's starting to get a little darker where I've put the lube. And you kind of want to just get it to that slightly bit darker part, pretty much everywhere that a clock touches. And remember here, these clocks will touch in each part like this here. So anywhere here, and also where the pins are, you'll want to have all of the gears, when they come in contact with this black plastic, to be lubed. Alright, so there we have it. A nice thin coating of lube, just about everywhere we have it here. Alright, so I'm going to do is I'm going to carefully now place this on top here. So notice here my screw is on this side and there's a screw down here, so to make sure this screw comes up with the top here. First, just try to get the pins to line up in here. It helps to have something to kind of guide the pins in. It's this one. This one seems to be falling over. Alright, then once you get the pins in, just go ahead and kind of guide the rest of the puzzle in. Okay, and then once the edge wheels, these are ones that have springs on them, so they'll be prominent here. Just go ahead and push down on the rest of the puzzle so it all comes in. And now that I've done one side, the easiest thing to do so you don't have to mess with all the internals is to just screw this back in a bit. Try to unscrew this a bit too. It doesn't have to be tight. I'll get into that later. Pins are already moving much better. Okay. Whoops. Actually, I don't want to screw this in. I just want to be careful flipping this over to make sure that the two black halves don't come apart. Alright, now that I've done that, I don't think I can screw that all the way. Alright, now that I've done that, be very careful again peeling this part off. And now that we flipped it over, we'll have the other half that we have yet to lube. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and do the same thing. So just dab some lube on here and rub it in with the paper towel. Just get a very thin coating of this. The clock is almost like a big cube in a way. There's a lot of gears and internal parts in there. And as a result, it needs a very thin lube. I'm not using the thinnest of lubes, which is why I'm trying to make sure I have a very, very thin coating of this stuff. If you have a thinner lube, you'll probably yield better results than what I'm getting here. But keep in mind that clock is a very temperamental puzzle, and sometimes you just get bad clocks. And then when you get bad clocks, you sell them to people at competitions. And then when you get that money, you buy new clocks. So really, it's a win-win situation. Alrighty, looking good. So now that we've done that, we're going to go ahead and put this back together. It might need some relubing still. You never know. But with clock, it's really always better to underlube first and then add as necessary, rather than go gung-ho. It could very well, after just some breaking in, that the lube will start to even out a bit, and then you might have put too much lube in from the start. Whoops, I think I put this on the wrong way. Yes, I just didn't match up screws, so the screw is on the back here. Gotta make sure I put the screw from the front here. What a nub. Okay. Looks like we got it all in there. Try to push it together. Awesome. And so far now, I have lubed the clock with really not super upsetting the internals here. Okay. The last piece of advice I can give you here is to not close your clock all the way. And the reason for that is that if you tighten your clock too much, you'll create some friction. More friction from the black plastic and the internal pieces. So typically what I do is I have it just cracked open a little bit. And this is a pretty tight little bolt in here, so I might try to sand that down a bit later. But if you have a little bit of tension here, that will allow the clock to have a little more wiggle room on the inside. And wow, I can feel this is already much better than what it was before. I'm going to loosen this just a little bit. Yeah, that's much better than it was before. And you can be like me and try to solve it while you don't even have the paper on yet. Alright, so now, personally, I like to have the same color on both sides. It comes like this, with the darker blue insert and lighter blue clocks. I like to have them the other way though. Makes it easier for me to recognize. Okay. Alright, so we have the paper inserts on. Let's go ahead now and place one of the clear parts over. And now the other clear part over, and make sure you look at where these bumps here are, as they'll have to meet up in a certain way. I believe this will work. That doesn't feel good. Okay. And wow, much better. And we have a much better clock than what I started this video with. Okay, clearly not warmed up, but I'm not used to this clock either. But now the pins will now come up and down with ease, but also will not slip, which is very important, which all the knockoff clocks have problems with. And turning is now absolutely effortless. So, yeah, the last thing you would need to worry about is this clock seems to be very sturdy in terms of holding the whole thing together. But sometimes these two halves, now that you've broken it, will not stay together very easily. So the best solution is to use some electric tape, of which I have right here, in my favorite school colors, of course. So what you can do is just peel some of this off, put it on one or two sides. On my main clock, I actually only put it on one side, because I actually think that if you give this a little wiggle room, as I mentioned earlier, it gives the clock some breathing room to sort of tension a little bit. And it makes it faster for me. Whenever I tighten it down and tape both sides, it's a much different clock. So something to keep in mind there. But that's how I will make my clocks from dreadful from eBay to speed solving ready. So I hope you enjoyed this video on Cubing World, and hope this gets you excited to try to get a good clock and practice some clock. It's my favorite event, probably a rare thing to say, but hopefully this gets you encouraged to do some more clock. So until next time on Cubing World, happy clocking!